The title is NIMBY versus YIMBY. This is taken from Los Angeles Times for subscribers. And I will run through this as quickly as possible. Protests, lawsuits, and a dead rat. A wealthy California city's epic fight to block growth. So this is by Jack Fleming, staff writer at LA Times. The last group that tried to build multifamily housing in La Cañada Flintridge received a dead rat in the mail. The package's message couldn't have been clearer, echoing the words that a former city planning commissioner said at public hearing in 2013. We like the way it is now. Tucked in a verdant crook of the Verdugo and San Gabriel Mountains, the city is a peaceful refuge from the bustle of Los Angeles, an affluent bastion of beautiful single-family homes on large, leafy lots. It's expensive, with an average home value of $1.99 million, and it's little. While the rest of Southern California swelled with residents over the last 4 decades, La Cañada Flintridge's population has hovered around 20,000 since 1980. For decades, the city developed a reputation as being fiercely anti-development in a conflict that came down on clear ideological lines: quality of life versus free market capitalism. To the slow growthers, the foes were developers trying to get rich at the town's expense. But the current fight over the future of a 1.29-acre lot holding an aging Christian Science church building at 600 Foothill Boulevard has pitted them against a harder group to demonize, those trying to get people into desperately needed affordable housing. And their foes are playing a card that past builders never used. Because the state says the city has not complied with its housing rules, developers might get to bypass La Cañada Flintridge city planners altogether and build an even bigger project than the one they originally proposed. Should have had my water. Anyway, NIMBYism takes root. And for those that don't know what NIMBY means, that's not in my backyard versus yes in my backyard. The city's battle over development dates to the 1980s, when the founder of now shuttered sporting goods retailer Sports Chalet looked to build the company's corporate headquarters on Foothill Boulevard. The proposal went through 34 public hearings and won approval from the city council. But an opposition group called Friends of 91011 sprouted up soon after, ousting the council members who favored the project and suing the city to overturn the certification of the environmental impact report. Jim Edwards, the city's former mayor who lost re-election after supporting the project, called the outrage pure NIMBYism. Fast forward 4 decades and the sentiment still rages on. The current fight began in 2015 when Oakmont Senior Living, a Santa Rosa, California housing company with 51 communities across California and Nevada, eyed the address for its next development, proposing a 3-story, 72-unit facility. Oakmont presented the project to the city's planning commission in January 2018, and commissioners requested time to gauge residents' concerns about potential effects on views, traffic, and parking, according to the La Cañada Valley Sun. The opposition was swift and unrelenting, led by an actor who played a famous sitcom dad, Family Ties star Michael Gross, founded Together La Cañada, a nonprofit dedicated to responsible development that fosters sustainable growth and public safety. He called the project a symptom of a larger problem of not adhering to the downtown village-specific plan, a framework adopted by the city in 2000 to enhance the area's role as a destination. The group, which didn't respond to multiple interview requests, carried out the same purpose as Friends of 91011, rallying residents against the development and stalling progress to the point at which Oakmont made no further proposals. After an Oakmont executive received the dead rat in the mail, postmarked from a local zip code, the company abandoned the project in 2019. Then came Cedar Street Partners, a development company that also specializes in senior housing projects. But unlike Oakmont, Cedar Street has 3 partners with strong ties to the city: Alexander Hack, who grew up in the area, Garrett Wyand, who lives a few blocks away from the site, and Jonathan Curtis, who was once the city's mayor. The company picked up the property for $4.2 million in September 2019 and began laying plans for a mixed-use project of 47 senior housing units, 12-room hotel, and office space. The ambitious project would require an exemption from the downtown area's strict zoning code, but the team believed it should be granted because of its much-needed contribution of multi-unit housing. The backlash began immediately, and Together La Cañada alleged on its website that the project would set a disturbing precedent, which would undoubtedly, over time, alter a large portion of the Foothill corridor. The group also launched 2 petitions deriding the project. One features an illustration of a traffic jam at the proposed site. The other, titled "Why is the 600-Foothill Project Back?" collected more than 200 signatures. On the website, petitioners raised concerns over the project's potential effects on traffic and density. Most argue that the location simply wasn't suitable for multifamily housing. The intersection with the Arco station, directly adjacent, is already so busy and dangerous. Putting up 47 dwellings with 70 to 100 parking spaces there is irresponsible, wrote Robin Gruber. I am all for 55-plus living accommodations, but disagree this is the best location and scope of the project, wrote Kelly Chamberlain. Other comments were more impassioned. This will change the tapestry of La Cañada forever. Stop the insanity, wrote Patty Wynn Hughes. The developers focused on public outreach with 3 hearings totaling 13 hours and private conversations with city council members. Wyan said he spoke with business owners surrounding the project, all of whom supported the development privately, but wouldn't support it publicly for fear of being boycotted by residents. In September, the city's planning commission recommended approval of the project. The trio felt optimistic, but the vibe was short-lived. 2 months later, the city council unanimously voted down the project 4-0. We went in hopeful, but looking back, there's absolutely no way they would have ever approved it, Hack said. She added the council's stated reason for denying the project was that it would disturb the village-like atmosphere of the downtown corridor. What village? We're next to an Arco and a giant Ralph's parking lot. A drive down Foothill Boulevard, the city's main commercial stretch, showcases a bit of local charm. There's a Pilates studio, smoothie shop, bookstore, bar, trading card store, and a well-reviewed fried chicken joint. But cars far outnumber the people on foot. An independent economic analysis of the Downtown Village Specific Plan in 2020 found that its mandates have not resulted in the type of development pattern envisioned in the plan. The city street trio walked away from the city council vote dejected, but they could play hard too. The company is mounting a strategy for an even bigger development based on a little-known, untested legal provision in the state housing law. If it works, it'll have the ramifications far beyond the small foothill city. Out of compliance. Good Lord. In the Bible.
I think that's good, Dan. We could probably finish up there.
Yeah, I guess, just get to what builder's remedy is, because that's what this is getting to from the developer's side. You want to fill that in?
Oh, you can pick it up right there.
Yeah, let's go there. Builder's remedy is a provision in California Housing Accountability Act that prohibits cities from denying certain housing projects if the city is out of compliance with housing element law. In other words, it allows housing developers to bypass local zoning restrictions as long as 20% of the units are low income or 100% are moderate income.
Yeah,
there you go.
That's
what they're going to try next.
I would love to see them put a low income housing there and absolutely max out the project. I think that senior housing for La Cañada residents, who there are plenty of elderly residents, would be amazing for that town. But I don't live in that town, so who am I to say that? This is a case of people with money just getting what they want. It's really that simple. And I've heard those arguments and every other argument about traffic flow and changing continuity and unsafe. And look, these are all just tools that people use, just like there are tools to get more housing built. But what I specifically love about this article is that although this is the extreme case, it's real and not far from us. There have been a variation of this in much of our city and maybe in our country for a very long time. And one of the big reasons we do have a housing shortage, I'm not even going to say, and on the flip side of that, everybody says, every article you read, they're basically tying a housing shortage to the homeless problem. It's not a direct tie to the homeless problem. Is it a faction of it? Yes, I admit that. But that's a convenient use of tools as well for a lot of those people. But the NIMBYism has basically said nobody wants these projects or these well-needed, denser entities and buildings in their neighborhoods, and that's why we have a housing shortage in the end. the senior housing element is kind of a low impact situation.
Yeah, I know.
It really is the most friendly, dense building you're going to get along that corridor, which is a true commercial corridor.
Yeah. I was
So
going to say, I mean, my memory of that area, that is not a village. That's just, yeah.
it's absolutely not.
No,
way.
not at all.
You know, like every other neighborhood, you have denser corridors and you have residential corridors. You get up into the hills, the lots get bigger, the houses get bigger. It's pretty normal elements. It's just that it's all on the smaller side. And look, NIMBYism exists still. And I think those who are a little more understanding, a little more empathetic, are a little more tolerant. But still, you know, maybe it's not in my entire neighborhood, but a lot of those people are still, well, not on my block, right? Put it on that block, not mine, not next door to me. 2 doors down's okay, you know.
Yeah.
At what point? I think continuity is important, but there are arguments about lack of continuity or safety or too much density for a project like this on a main thoroughfare like Foothill are all BS. There's no reality to that. It's just the tools they're using to try to maintain their wealth. And ironically, and I recognized this about 10 years ago, although you never hear this really said, but NIMBYism increases property values by limited supply. So those who are fighting lesser density in their neighborhoods are actually gaining value if they own property. And it's not always property owners who are fighting projects. Often it's renters too that are right there alongside them. But it does raise property values to limit development. So it's important to allow more development to be built, to bring down, to level, not to bring down, but to level off values, to level off rents. We always hear about that. So, you know, we read an article a couple of weeks ago about a guy who supports YIMBYism, right? The people who say they couldn't afford a house made $200K. That's where we first heard that word.
Right.
So, you know, I've come to a point where I support it, and I think it does need to be healthy and somewhat cohesive, but that's subjective. The perception of that is subjective. It is what it is. Yep.
All right. Well, you know, we'll certainly see how this ends out probably pretty soon, and we'll come back to it later. But I would think this is the most passive, most friendly way, senior housing, to see if something's going to work. Sure. I can't think of anything better.
And I'm always surprised that people with, well, maybe I'm not surprised. People with a lot of money who are, you know, won't stand and look at somebody in the face. They should just say, "I want my property value to go up." I mean, I would respect that a lot more than mailing someone a rat anonymous in the mail. You know, that's but no surprise.
Yep. All right. Well, there you go. That is the topic for this week, and we will follow up.